a right way to show rental property to investors. If you're new, turn your cameras on. It makes it a lot easier for me to run these. A right way to show rental property to investors. If you're new, turn your cameras on. It makes it a lot easier for me to run these events if I can see whether you're understanding things or not. If you're getting it, hand to the camera. If you are here and everything is making sense, excellent. So real estate investing is a job, right? Real estate investing is a job until it switches over to just simply being an investment. What do I mean by that? As investors, we have to do work to get our investments. There is a couple of stages, a couple of steps that we have to pass the threshold to. Once we have everything automated, yes, it's passive and we're not doing as much. But that first building of the portfolio, it's all about the real estate agent and showing properties. Does that make sense? It's getting us into property reviewing and analyzing, putting offers in. That's where investors' work actually begins. A lot of real estate agents miss the most important part. And this is the part that really investors take the most seriously, is the showing. At the showing, this is probably the only time you're going to see your investor, because this is the only time we're actually working. Does that make sense? Excellent. So showing and learning how to show is paramount. Why do we do these trainings? We do these trainings for free because we just love training. That's possibly an answer. Also, we're real estate investors ourselves. We're looking for more deals. We'd like the agents that we work with to be more talented. We're also an investment company that teaches. And so we have hundreds of buyers that work with us, and we don't have enough real estate agents working with us in order to supply service all of our investors. Our investors are buying consistently, and we found that the agent, we'll say, how do I say this gently? The agents that are out there kind of suck. They don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know how cash flow works, and they don't know how to make sure and evaluate a flip works. Everybody on this call, I assume, is not one of those people. Safe to say, yes, we at least like investment. Perfect. One of the steps I talk about often is you must be an investor to work with investors. It really, really, really helps to own investment property, or to have a burning desire to own investment property when you're working with investors. It's really hard to sell something that you don't believe in. Does that make sense? We agree it's hard to sell something we don't believe in. Has anybody ever tried to sell something you didn't believe in? Felt a little sleazy doing it? Felt a little like, oh, why? I don't know about this. Yeah, really hard to do. I own 60 units here in Fall River. Some are condos, some are most are multifamilies. Got one single family that's a flip, so I guess technically 61 units. And so when I give advice, it comes from actual knowledge. It comes from actively doing things right now. Does that make sense? Excellent. Is it a little intimidating? Does anybody currently not have any investments, and now after this couple of minutes they're like, oh fuck, like I need to, like, what do you mean? Like, okay, sorry guys. So that is in no means a way to scare you away. What it is instead is, it's just a thought. It's something to think about. Like, why haven't I owned or bought an investment property? What has stopped me? Is it that I'm not interested, I don't believe in the product? Is it that I'm scared of it? And if those are the answers, if you are afraid of investment property, that will come through in every conversation that you have with investors. They'll notice that you're a little bit of fearful, and then they'll take on that emotion of being fearful themselves. Also, if you don't believe in investment, that will come through in your language, and they'll be able to tell that you're fake. Does that make sense? We get how that could be real. Excellent. Now, you don't have to own real estate in order to want to own real estate. Who here knows that they want to buy some real estate at some point? Yes. Investment, I would even be better. Real estate is the number one way, we believe this, it's the number one way to retire. That with real estate, with enough real estate, you can have a situation where you don't have to work anymore. And just imagine for a moment that you did have enough real estate. Think about the number, whatever that number would be, monthly income coming in. Focus on that number, visualize it, and think about, it came from real estate. There's a property manager in place who's covering everything. So you're making just a little bit more than you would actually need, because now you're paying for your real estate property manager, and all the money is coming through The flips are being done by somebody else, and you get to wake up every day doing whatever it is that you want. And I can almost guarantee you it's not showing property. That is a good exercise to have. Acknowledge that being an agent is a stepping stone. It's something that gets you to the next level, and you'll be more connected to the real estate investor's mindset. They're using this as a stepping stone. Now, that said, there is a right way to show property, and there is a wrong way to show property. And unfortunately, most agents miss the opportunities in that showing of the property. Again, now that you're here, if you could turn the camera on, it helps me see who's getting this and if I'm actually still making sense. If you're hearing the audio, can you turn your camera on and throw your hand to the camera so I know that the sound is coming through? Excellent. Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause for knowing how sound works, knowing how to work these Zoom calls, making sure you're all dressed appropriately. If you're not wearing pants, all is forgiven. Just make sure you're wearing a shirt at least. That is the one thing we ask when you turn the camera on. Thank you very much. Now, diving into it, I wanted you to write this down. Your first contact is all about the relationship. Your first contact with an investor could be your last contact with an investor. So when you get an investor on the phone, they say they're looking to buy investment property, understand that they very, very rarely will be involved. Their goal as an investor is to not really do too much for a good investor anyway, a scalable investor. Now, your job is to be there. It's going to be more than you've ever done, because if you've ever worked normal, who here has worked normal residential transactions? Normal deals? Okay. Investment deals are different. Investment deals are different. In a normal deal, the buyer wants to see the property. In a normal deal, the buyer has an opinion about everything. In a normal deal, the buyer wants a driveway, they want a basement, they want a yard, they want fences, they want paint, like the walls have to be painted the right way, they want porches, they want a pool. An investor wants none of those things. The investor does not want parking. Well, parking would be, depends on the area. They want on-street parking that they don't have to maintain, but they don't want a big driveway that they're gonna have to plow or handle. They don't want a big yard because a yard would be maintenance. They don't want the porch. They don't want the pool. These are all insurance issues. They want a property that fits human beings in, that cash flows. That's what they're looking for. And so they don't necessarily have to be at the property. They're just going to ask you for a rent roll, condition of property. How is the maintenance looking? Does it look like it's going to need a lot of work? This is stuff that you're going to be looking for and that they're going to be looking for. And when they're in the building with you, this is probably potentially the last time you'll ever see this investor until the closing table. Does that make sense? When working with investors, understand just how important it is face-to-face communication can be, because after this, it's going to be texting, it's going to be phone calls, it's going to be emails. And so in the beginning, it's all about rapport. It's listening, asking questions, probing for what they're looking to do, and then having very little input except for the main parts that they're looking to know. They want to know the roof, age of the roof. They want to know what type of, are the utilities split? This is for multifamily. Are the utilities split? They want to know if the rents are all being paid, what the rents are. So going to a property, it's very important that you have rent rolls already. You've already got an age on the number, on the roof. They're looking for condition of units. If they can't get into all the units, they want to at least know what the condition is when the last time they were renovated. That's it. They don't want to know much more other than what the expenses are potentially going to be and what the rents are potentially going to be. And then they also, every single time I'm in an apartment with a agent that I don't know the area, I'm asking them, what could the rent be in this apartment? What could the rent be? So it's very important. You can go on rentometer.com. You can find this information before you get to the appointment. You should know what the rents are going to be in that area, in that house. Pulling back, that's multifamily. Let's go into single family flips for a moment. Single family flips, these are bread and butter for most investors. I know in my city, there's 6,000 single families and there's only 3,000 three families. There's 2,000 two families. So the numbers are pretty easy for me to remember, but there's a larger majority of single families. Does that make sense? There's still more singles out there and there's more consumer buyers. So they make more sense to do the flip. Most cities across the country are single families. Most cities are prevalently single families, especially you go start to the west, towards the West Coast, middle America, Midwest. Those are all single family prevalent, with multifamilies tending to be in smaller amounts. So the flip investors are another form that most agents will at least run into at least once. They buy the house and sell the house twice. They're 2-for-1s. Newer investors don't know that they owe you the listing after you help them buy the house, but they do. Anybody on here ever worked with an investor who's buying a flip, or ever done a flip and then handed it back to the same agent who brought you the flip? Yes. It's kind of an unspoken law, but it has to be spoken. At some point, an agent has said this to you, or you as an agent have said this to the investor, that, hey, just hook me up. Make sure that I'm the agent who lists it on the other side. A lot of agents will turn away investors who are looking to buy cheap houses. They think that the commission is not worth it. They're seeing these houses at $100,000, $200,000, and they're saying, man, like, this isn't worth it. You know, this transaction's too small. You're putting in a bunch of offers to get just one deal, and then the deal's a small commission. And sometimes they ask you to cut some of your commission so that they can make more money on the profit. Anybody ever been negotiated with by their investor? Yes? Excellent. It's not something you suffer. It's an opportunity, because they will just jump to another agent if you don't work with them the way they want to be worked with. That said, you get the listing on the other side. Now they're about to renovate this and double its value. If they do it right, they're doubling the value, so that $100,000 house becomes a $250,000 house. That $200 house becomes a $450,000 house, $350,000 house. These are great listings, and they're mint. They're pimped out and they're great. So you've got to upfront let them know, hey, by the way, once I find you a deal, I want to make sure that I'm going to be the one who does the listing. I can't wait to work with you to list this property and make sure it looks awesome. Do you agree that that would make sense? They say, yes, we can move forward. Everybody can say that sentence. It wouldn't affect you in any way negatively to say that sentence. You can ask for the listing. Perfect. The other questions to ask is, how many deals are you looking to do this year? Write this one down. How many deals are you looking to do this year? What is your long-term goal? Write this one down. What is your long-term goal? These are deep rapport-building conversations for an investor. This would not be a normal residential buyer. This is not a normal conversation to have. But what are your goals as a real estate investor? How many deals are you looking to do a year? What kind of deals are you looking to do a year? And when you're in the property, is this property the type of deal you're looking to do? Does this property fit the requirements for your investment strategy? Over time, you should be able to tell them that. Over time, if they say, oh, I'm looking to buy a bunch of rental properties and cash flow, and I want 30 units in the next 5 years, but they're looking at a single family house, you now have a way to ask, well, why are we in a single family house right now? It's going to create more conversation. Well, you know, I need to do a flip first, or I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And that gives you an opportunity to create more education, which builds deeper rapport and makes you the authority on the subject. One of the points is you want to become the authority and investing in your market. That is how you get more trust from investors. 1, you know the numbers. 2, you're the authority in the area. Does that make sense? It's all about knowing the numbers and being the authority. So you want to be able to give them that plan. We talked about it last week, the 5-year plan. Who was here for the 5-week plan? Saw, heard, listened to? Yes? That strategy, I'll recap real quick, is they buy one house a year, one rental property per year. That cash flow is enough to reach their current income. So if they're earning $50,000 a year, one property per year, that picks up an extra $10,000 in cash flow, is a 5-year retirement plan. It's not going to make them rich overnight, but as those loans are being paid off, 5 properties at cash flow at $10,000 a month, that can be a $250,000 house that would be getting paid down every single year. And so after 5, 10, 20, depending on the market, depending on the house, they can become a millionaire. That's a slow way to do it, but it's a possible way to do it. And if they're buying with a steep discount, that speeds up even more. So many investors want a deal, don't they? They all want a deal. Everybody wants to buy the house dirt cheap. That is only possible when they're shopping off market. In this current market, this is seller's market. It's very, very hard to find a good deal. By show of hands, who has worked or heard of or talked to an investor who has said they want off market property? Yes. So that's because the investor's on Bigger Pockets. Write this down, biggerpockets.com. Every investor that I have met over the last 5-10 years has been on Bigger Pockets. They're reading, they're learning, they're saying things like the 1% rule, the 70% rule, the 50% rule, the 2% rule. They're talking about ARV. Who here has never heard of ARV? ARV is a new one? Excellent. Jenny, I'm sorry, I'm picking on you so much. It gets easier, I promise. ARV stands for after repair value. Write that down, after repair value. When you go to see a flip, you should know what the after repair value is. A sophisticated investor is going to ask. A new investor who's on Bigger Pockets is going to say, well, what's the ARV? And they're going to expect an answer. Investors in the call, have we all asked an agent this? You've been in a property and asked an agent, hey, what's the ARV? Yeah. And then had to explain what ARV is? Investors? Yes? It's okay. The idea is that every time an investor says one of their key phrases, one of their terminologies, and we miss it as agents, we miss an opportunity with them to be the authority. And so Bigger Pockets has about 20 to 30 different terms on there, and you can just Google real estate terms, Bigger Pockets. And there's a blog that somebody wrote a while back that has all the definitions of all the words that we use. ARV is a big one. LTV, loan to value, this is a term that lenders use. DTC, debt to income ratio, DTI, debt to income ratio. This is another term a lender will use. The 70% rule is the combination of what price you should buy a rental property at minus the ARV. So it'd be the ARV if the ARV was 300,000. 70% rule would say you have to now buy that property at 200,000 so that you have a 30% profit margin in the property. Is this making sense? And the numbers are a little off. It's in that ballpark. So in addition to it, they're going to want to know what the renovation costs would be for a flip and what finishings they would have to do in order to get to that ARV. Has anybody ever been asked by a client, what should I fix in my house, gone to a listing appointment, and the client asks you what they should fix, what's going to increase the most value? Yes? So that is a complex question, isn't it? Unless you know what other investors are doing their flips what they're doing in their flips. So the easiest way to find out what ARV should be is you go online, you can do this in your market right now, and you go online to MLS and you look for a property that is obviously a flip. If I give you that instructions, we've all seen them before, haven't we? You can see a property and you're like, oh shit, that's definitely a flip. You know what it looks like. You know exactly what they've done. They've redone the floors. They've redone the kitchens. They've redone the lights. They've painted the walls, painted the moldings. And this house just looks spectacular. But I bet you they're all doing just about the same finishings, aren't they? Yes? Have you noticed they're just about the same finishings? All investors, it's like we have the same handbook and we're all doing just about the same thing that seems to be selling. It's because that's what we're seeing other investors do. Does that make sense? We're just following the best selling comps in the market. We're looking at what's sold for the best amount for the same square footage for our property. And then we're doing that same exact work. When you get a new investor who's never done the deal before, they're going to ask you, what do you think it will cost to get to ARV, to get to that point? If you have a relationship with a contractor, this is a great opportunity for you to make sure that they're getting that work. So once you've had them go in and give a couple quotes, you'll be very close to understanding what that number is consistently. And you can say, well, last time I had a similar project, this gentleman or person I worked with gave a quote of this range. That makes you now the authority on the subject. You are now the most valuable player. You're the MVP when it comes to pricing things out because you've got the comps, you got the ARV, right? And you've got now the cost to get there. These are the only numbers we need as an investor. You tell me it's a $50,000 renovation. I'm buying a house at $150 and the ARV is $260. I know my profit. Does that make sense? That's how I buy a building. I don't give a shit about the porch. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what the house has been through. I just want to know what it's going to cost to get it to where I want it to be so that we can make some money. Is this helping everybody right now? this is valuable information to know what to walk in with. So if you were ever intimidated by an investor, intimidated by the prospect of working with investors, you now have a bunch of tools in your toolbox to actually sound very professional going out there. Here's another tool, the Bigger Pockets calculator. Go into Bigger Pockets, go to their calculators, and look for the flip calculator. This tool is going to give you the ability to take those numbers, plug them in, and now you can honestly say, here's the number. Here's exactly what it looks like. You got pretty graphs. There's line charts. There are numbers that they can even put in the carrying costs. Are they buying in cash? So it's another question to ask. Are you buying in cash, or using hard money, or using a traditional lender? With this information, you now know the time frames that your investor has. You know the options that they have, and you know what kind of return on investment they're going to get because of carrying costs. For any new agents or new investor agents, carrying costs are defined as the expense of holding onto the property. It can be the insurance, it can be the mortgage itself, whether it's hard money and you're carrying it, and it can also be taxes that will have to be paid during the renovation. These three factors come into your profit margin, because if you hold it for too long, those expenses exist every month. Does that make sense? Those expenses carry on through with the project, and they can come out to, I found that in our projects, there's typically around $12,000 in carrying costs if we're in the project between 4 to 6 months. It comes out to 8 to 14, but that will change depending on your market. So you have to know your market, what the financing costs and what the price of the building is going to be. Now that you know the numbers, now that you know how to be a valuable agent, there's also the more personal side to the investor, which is what they do for a career, what they do for a living, what time constraints they have, how easily they can be in a property. And a lot of investors are investing out of state or out of area. How far do they live? Where do they live? Knowing these factors not only builds a good, deeper relationship with you, but it also lets you know kind of how you have to work with this investor. Will they actually be showing up to another property? Or if they really do want to be hands-on in showing up, what days are they available? What weeks are they available? Do they have kids? Will they have to bring kids to the property? Offering the opportunity to say, hey, I'll check the property out first. I'll let you know if it's kid-friendly or not. These factors make you a much more reasonable agent. They make you a more friendly agent, somebody who cares about their investor. When I talk about the right way to show investment property, I'm talking about a way to lock this investor in for life. Investors tend to be the most transient clients. We have all heard, correct me if I'm wrong, we've all heard buyers are liars. Is everybody? That's like the first thing they tell you in real estate training 101, buyers are liars. So buyers are not liars. What they are is confused. They're uneducated in the process, or they're looking to spread out the amount of little employees they have, especially with investors. We look at agents as employees or potential partners, but we haven't committed because the deal hasn't been brought to us. Does that make sense? So it's potential commitment, potential partnerships until we actually have a reason to do it. With all of these little questions that you're asking, the questions you're writing down and building up, you're building the authority and the relationship, that trust with the investor, so that they now have a desire to work with you going forward. Because when they talk to other investors, they're going to instantly be aware that, when they talk to other agents, they're going to be instantly aware that they didn't feel comfortable with that agent, that agent didn't seem to ask the right questions, that agent doesn't seem to care about them and their needs and what they're looking to do as an investor. We can see how a couple of key questions can totally change that perception, yes? And by asking, this is the last little tip I'll give you on the actual showing of the house. And notice we haven't talked about the house, right? Very, very little how we talked about them looking at the house. It's all figures, it's all numbers, it's all facts. These are things a lot of research you can do before you get to the property. This is all this is how an investor thinks. It's numbers, it's not emotions. But the couple of personal questions are important. That question you asked about how they're financing the deal is usually where agents drop the ball. This is usually where agents drop and say, you don't have a pre-approval, sorry, we can't show you the house. It's very important to understand the different forms of financing and real estate investing. Who here's worked with hard money before? Hard money loans? Yes. Who here has never worked with hard money, but has heard of it? You've heard of hard money before. Excellent. So hard money is, in flipping, typically the form of financing. We do not get pre-approved. In fact, the bank will not pre-approve those projects. Does that make sense? So learning how to work with hard money may be a good value. Yes? Excellent. So you should have a few hard money lenders in your pocket at any given time. They're easy to find. Just Google hard money lenders. There's some national hard money lenders, and then there are local hard money lenders. The national, here's the irony. The national hard money lenders tend to be cheaper than the local hard money lenders. They do tend to be cheaper. They tend to have more restrictions, but they can be, you're talking 8% interest. They can be 2 points, 8%. Whereas locally, you're probably going to be in that 2 points, 10%, 2 points, 12%. Some are 2 points, 14%. I just recently paid 3 points, 12%. But it was a deal that was multifamily, and the banks are a little more afraid of multifamily right now, so we paid a little bit more on the points. But once we refinance, it's a no-brainer. So sometimes we'll buy at a break-even price because of the financing, and then we'll slide into a refinance that gives us tons of cash flow. Does that make sense? So without hard money, I would not have bought that house. In fact, without hard money, I would not have bought the last, I want to say 8 deals we've done. We've bought these deals without having much money in the bank. Now, do not be confused. We're a sophisticated investor. We have bought a lot of deals. We've done deals before. If an investor is first timer telling you that they do not have any cash and that they're just going to use other people's money, it's your responsibility to make sure that they have at least one person lined up. Does that make sense? Make sure that they have a commitment letter from somebody, because you could have an investor who came to one of my courses but didn't follow all the way through. They heard the part about buy with no money down, OPM, you can do it. All you need to do is go and find the money after you find the deal. Although true, not everybody is as good as me at finding money after they find the deal. Does that make sense? We understand that it does take a skill set to raise capital, and not all investors have it. So you do want to make sure that they have some sort of commitment letter, at least from a hard money lender, before they're going in and looking at property, or that they have a substantial amount of money in the bank. And if you know it's 20%, sure, you can show that property. It makes a lot of sense. But if they are an investor, and this is just a cautionary tale, if they're an investor who has absolutely no money, they don't have 2 nickels to rub against each other, and they're asking you to show property and they have no good strategy to finance, then shoot me a text, ask me about it, and I will double check. I will just double check that strategy and make sure it works. You can send me a message on Facebook. Very easy to get a hold of, Walter Morello on Facebook, or you can ask Darina Pagodina. She is always available via text. Do not call, but just say, hey, this is what they asked. This is what they had. Do you think that this is somebody who could do a deal? If they have no money in the bank and they've never done a deal before, probably not. They're probably not a no money down buyer. Does that make sense? Investors in the room who've done deals before or know somebody who's done deals, they used other people's money, but they put some money in too, didn't they? On the first deal, typically you're putting some money in. That is consistent. If they haven't saved up enough to have a down payment to do a deal, they're probably not ready for real estate investing. It does take some money, but it doesn't take all the money that the banks say it takes. Ever talked to a lender and the lender said, nope, they can't do it. They don't have a job. They don't have the W-2. Has a client ever been refused financing from not having a W-2? Yeah. I haven't had a W-2 in 5 years, right? And I've been buying property for the past 5 years. A lot of it is hard money or commercial. They don't care about my income. Well, they care about my income, but they don't care about how my income is earned. And so we can still get financing, especially on those flips. Financing a flip right now is so easy, and it's really a right product to be selling. So when you're asking about their money, how they're going to borrow the money, ask a little deeper just to make sure that they have a grasp on it. Just make sure they're not somebody who just went to one of those gurus and was like, buying houses with no money down. We've all heard those people call us before. Yeah, I want the off-market deal. I'm buying it with no cash. And instantly in your head, you're like, oh my God, no, not working with this person. This person has no clue. It's true. They may not, but they have the desire, which means you could teach them. They're just a longer term buyer. Just you can send them to one of our courses, send them to our Monday our Monday night, the wholesale mastermind, where we help people find property. We also talk about seller financing. We talk about hard money. We talk about raising private capital. We talk about money brokers instead of mortgage brokers. We talk about money brokers. These are people who have multiple mortgage brokers. And we talk about how to prepare yourself for these deals. I'll be running a course again soon called Get the Money. Has anybody been to one of my Get the Money courses? Get the money, get the deal. Excellent. So give yourselves a round of applause. If you've been in one of my events, you're rocking one of these, the I Am an Alchemist wristband. So that wristband is all about anytime you think, oh, I don't have the money, you pull this bad boy back, give yourself a little smack, and then you say, I always have more than enough money, and then kiss it better because you want that positive influence out there. So anybody who's been to a Get the Money course knows how to find the money. They have a mindset now that's drilled in that there is money for that deal. They are doing the work daily. I personally raised $70,000 today for 2 projects that we're working on. I know